There is a hidden fracture in your life right now. It is that one toxic pattern you swore you would eliminate last January and the January before that. You brush it off as a minor vice. You tell yourself you could stop tomorrow if you really wanted to. But here is the cold biological reality. Every time you give in, you are not just making a bad choice. You are literally editing your brain structure. The weakness you are ignoring is getting faster, stronger, and more automatic every single day. Centuries ago, Miyamoto Musashi understood this relentless mental wiring. Today, modern neuroscience proves him right. If you want to kill this weakness before it permanently becomes your identity, lock in. But before we can rewire this system, you must immediately drop a lie you tell yourself every time you fail. A single word that guarantees you will never win this war. Drop the label of weakness immediately. Using that term is the ultimate form of self-deception. Labeling yourself as weak makes it sound like a permanent life sentence, a genetic flaw you are forced to battle forever. By framing the problem as a character defect, you guarantee your own defeat. You are fighting the wrong war entirely. You do not suffer from a lack of strength. You are dealing with an established biological circuit. Decades ago, brain researchers uncovered a mechanism that dictates human behavior. The rule is brutally simple. When your brain cells activate simultaneously, they physically link up. With relentless repetition, that link transforms into an unbreakable chain. In the neuroscience world, there is a famous principle. Brain cells that activate together fuse together. Lock that concept into your mind. Every single time you have given in to that toxic pattern, a highly specific group of neurons fired in a specific sequence inside your head, and because they fired together, they wired together. A little more each time, a little faster each time. What you call your personal weakness is just the physical result of that constant wiring. It is not a fundamental flaw in your soul. It is a literal pathway in your brain etched into reality by your own endless repetition. Musashi wrote that there is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. This aligns perfectly with modern science. If weakness is just character, there is absolutely nothing you can do except hate yourself for having it. But if weakness is just circuitry, something incredible becomes possible. It can be dismantled, not through guilt, not through empty promises made at midnight. It can be unbuilt through the exact same mechanism that built it. You just have to point the weapon in the opposite direction. Understanding your brain's wiring gives you a chance, but understanding alone is never enough to destroy it. There is a brutally cruel biological reason why, even when you know exactly what you are doing wrong, you still surrender the next morning. The problem is not your knowledge. The problem is the flawed weapon you brought to the battlefield. You have analyzed your flaws from every possible angle. You have written about them in your journal. You have explained them to your friends. You understand your destructive patterns with absolute surgical clarity. And yet, absolutely nothing has changed. Why? Because simple understanding does not rewire a human brain. Only raw repetition rewires the brain. You can analyze the neural circuit all day long, but it will still fire tomorrow morning because your neurons do not respond to sudden insight. They only respond to physical use. This brings us to the brutal reality of your daily struggle. You keep bringing conscious intention to a biological war. Think about how many times you woke up on a Monday, fully convinced that this was the week you would finally change. You made the promise out loud. You felt the clean, burning certainty of someone who has finally decided to take control. And for a few days, you held your ground. Then, a minor stress hit you, a bad night of sleep, a long day at work. And suddenly, you were right back where you started. You concluded that you were weak. You should have concluded that you were biologically outmatched. The pathways you have used thousands of times do not just work, they work with terrifying efficiency. Every single repetition made that neural route faster and smoother for your nervous system to execute. In the critical moment of decision, you are not choosing between two equal options. You are choosing between an 8-lane concrete highway and a fragile dirt footpath in the pitch dark. Of course, the highway wins every single time. It was engineered to win, and you built it yourself. Musashi taught that under absolute pressure, you do not rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your training. Your brain operates exactly the same way. Willpower is a conscious resource, and conscious resources are incredibly expensive and finite. By the time your willpower actually shows up to fight the battle, the automated circuit has already fired. If you have ever felt that sudden defeat, drop a comment below, so we know you are locked in. So if your willpower is always too slow and too weak to defeat an automated biological highway, how do you actually destroy it? The answer does not lie in motivation. It lies in a bizarre medical paradox. A paradox that can either save your life or turn you into a permanent prisoner. There is a ruthless paradox hidden deep inside your skull. The exact same biological machine that allows a paralyzed stroke survivor to miraculously walk again is the exact same machine forging the invisible iron bars locking you in your room every night. Your brain does not have a moral compass. It is completely blind. It is like a mindless, raging river. You carve a deep trench through your repeated surrenders, and the water will obediently flow right into it, turning a small scratch into a bottomless canyon. There are not two different operating systems inside your head. You do not have one system for incredible strength and a separate system for terrible weakness. There is only one system, and it blindly enforces whatever you feed it. The machinery that could rebuild you from the ground up is currently cementing the toxic pattern you despise. Your capacity for total transformation and your capacity for absolute rigidity are the exact same biological trait. Musashi understood this duality centuries before brain scanners existed. He taught that the mind is like water. It has no shape of its own. It merely takes the exact shape of the container you pour it into every single day. People who live most of their lives in unvaried repetition do not stay mentally flexible. They calcify. They become increasingly fixed, not because a massive tragedy struck them, but because absolutely nothing happened. They kept firing the exact same circuits, and their obedient brains solidified around those cowardly choices. Every repetition is a biological vote for who you will be in 10 years. The brain counts every single vote, and the compounded result becomes your permanent character. You are not doing the bad habit anymore. You are physically made of it. That is the paradox in its full terrifying weight. The gift of neuroplasticity and the curse of neuroplasticity are the exact same gift. The gift and the curse are one. But if the brain is only shaped by repetition and our willpower is always depleted, what is the actual tool to hack this system? The answer does not come from an epic transformation. It comes from a pragmatic method so uncomfortable, so tedious, and so offensive to your ego that 99% of men will quit on the very first day. The perfect hero you are waiting for to change your life is never going to show up. You have been waiting for the exact week you finally have enough energy, the month you finally have enough time to execute a flawless 90-day life reset. That reset is a complete biological myth. While you wait for that imaginary motivation, the mental circuit you want to destroy is quietly growing infinitely stronger. Musashi did not become a legend through sudden emotional bursts of rage. The absolute stillness of Fudoshin, the immovable mind, came from tens of thousands of maddeningly tedious sword strikes in the dark. Your brain rewires through the incredibly small, consistent, repeated firings of the exact circuit you want to build. This is the 1% neurological law. Find the absolute smallest possible behavior that directly contradicts your weakness. Do not choose the impressive version. Choose a 2-minute action, one single refusal, something so minor it almost feels insulting to your ego. But here is the brutal reality that makes most men quit. The 1% choice you make tomorrow will not give you a dopamine rush. It will be flat, dry, and painfully silent. But remember this. That boring silence is exactly what it sounds like when neural pathways are being forced to reconnect from scratch. When you repeat a tiny new behavior in a stable physical context, your brain wires the connection much faster. Consistency easily outperforms intensity because your nervous system is completely unimpressed by your emotional effort. It is only shaped by your daily frequency. However, applying this 1% rule is only half of the equation. You could practice your new habit flawlessly like a monk, and you will still fail miserably if you do not know how to handle the dark side, because your brain is hiding a brutally harsh competitive secret. You think indulging yourself just one time is a harmless break? You are dead wrong. The space inside your brain is a finite, hyper-competitive war zone. Every time you surrender, you are actively surrendering territory for the enemy to occupy. You cannot hold on to a rusted familiar blade and expect to master a new weapon at the exact same time. Brain real estate is highly limited. Circuits actively fight for physical territory inside your skull. When one circuit is used heavily, it violently expands. Neuroscience proves that neurons that fire apart actually wire apart. This means disuse is not a passive state. Disuse is the most violent, offensive weapon you have. Every single time you refuse the old habit, you are not suppressing yourself. You are executing a starvation attack. You must patiently watch that monster shrink and wither away because you refuse to feed it. Your feelings about the slip-up do not matter to your brain. The circuit is winning the biological war while you make up excuses. Musashi warned that the warrior must not have any favorite weapon. Becoming too attached to one weapon leads to death. You must be willing to drop the familiar vice. Every single time you refuse the old habit, its physical territory shrinks slightly in your brain. If you are ready to starve your old circuit, drop a comment 2 below. You do not need to aggressively attack the old pattern. You simply need to cut off its energy supply. You do not need to attack the old habit. You just need to cut off its power source. But what actually happens inside your brain when you ruthlessly starve that monster over the next few days? A chilling reality will emerge. The truth about a silent election that you can never, ever escape. There is a version of you arriving in exactly 2 years. You do not get to decide whether that man shows up at your door or not. You only get to decide what face he is wearing. And you are casting the mold for that face with your decisions in the dark tonight. There is no miracle coming to save you. You will never become the person you merely intend to be. You will only become the person your physical repetitions have been electing while you were busy planning something else. The brain does not reward your grand plans. It only ratifies your daily patterns. Starting tonight, you have 72 hours of absolute discipline to establish a new baseline, or you will continue to be crushed by your own biological machine. The weakness does not break in a cinematic climax. It slowly starves to death. And the man you want to become does not suddenly arrive. He accumulates through silent, relentless discipline. Musashi taught that you must respect the gods without relying on their help. You are the architect of your own ruin and the sole builder of your own empire. The brain is not your enemy, and it is not your friend. It is simply a faithful biological machine that physically builds whatever you repeatedly practice. It does not ask for your consent. It only asks for your daily repetition. So the real work is not to summon a massive wave of motivation. The real work is to stop treating any single action as insignificant. If you are ready to sever the old neural circuit, leave your very first ballot in the comments right now. That public action is your first strike. Hit the subscribe button to rebuild your mind.